at the home of Mae Capron, Mrs. Caleb Capron, 79 High Street, Hastings on 78 High Street, Hastings-on-Hudson.
No.
Or is it 79?
I don't even know whether it is 79.
Well, it's 78, 78, that's it. And this is Phyllis Harnack from the Hastings Historical Society. We're going to use as a basis for this the questionnaire that Joan Burston and I made up for the Hastings Historical Society exhibition. And the first question is, do you have any recollections of parents or grandparents who lived in Hastings during the 1875 to 1885 era?
I had no one here at all.
Yeah. What was your maiden name?
Bradley.
And how did your family, where did you meet your husband?
Who knows?
You lived in Hastings?
Oh, yes, I lived in Hastings.
You grew up in Hastings. I see. You were born here.
No, I was not. I was born in New York City.
I see.
And moved from New York City to Dobbs Ferry when I was a small child.
I see.
And in about 1896, my father got a position as gardener for Henry Seidenberg
Right.
on Broadway. Incidentally, I think you live on that piece of property right now.
I
think
do.
that's
That's where the
apartment-
Seidenberg house was.
Yes.
It was torn down, and the Hastings House apartments were built on
No,
it. Is that right?
No, that's not right.
It's right next door?
Hastings, right. Hastings House was the Trubie estate.
How do you spell that?
Trube.
I see. Right.
And that was right next door.
And Seidenbergs were where the
Seidenberg's
Hastings,
is where I don't know what the name
Hastings
of it.
Gardens, I think they
Hastings
call them
Gardens
now.
yeah. Well,
Right.
don't you live there?
No, I lived at the Hastings house.
Oh.
Yeah. 16 years.
Oh.
So your parents, your father got a job with the Seidenbergs as a gardener, and you still live in Dobbs Ferry.
No, we
Yeah.
moved on to the estate.
I see. Oh, yeah.
And I lived there and started school there.
Which school did you go to, Mae?
To the very big, beautiful school. The stone school built by the Fraser Free School was the first school I went to.
Right, where the fire engine is now.
Yes, and I went there for the first grade and the second grade.
Right.
And as I remember, I can be very wrong, but I think I'm right. Miss Donahue was a first grade teacher. And the second grade teacher was Miss Capron.
Right.
And
I think we have some references someplace to Miss Donahue. And how do you spell Capron? C-A?
Caffen.
Uh-huh.
I'm pretty sure. I'm not positive, but
Right.
I think so.
Right.
And then the third grade was Miss Burbott.
Mm-hmm.
And the family lived here in town.
Right. How many children in your class?
I haven't any idea at all.
You don't
It was
remember, yeah.
it seemed to me quite a few.
Right.
Then when we were promoted from the second grade to the third, we moved down the street to a store. I don't know whether Haycrafts owned it then, but Haycrafts owned property in that area at that time. And we moved there to the third grade. And Miss Emma Van
Oh,
Ostrom
my.
was
Polly.
the first, Polly Van Ostrom was the first teacher there.
Mm-hmm.
Miss 15 minutes for inattention. That was her pet word.
Oh, my.
And then she became, I always felt, she became very smart. Actually, in all truth, she was a very smart woman.
Mm-hmm.
But she was promoted, the next year we were promoted to the fourth grade, but still in the same.
Now, where was the store? Can you tell us
Yes,
what's
I
there
can tell you,
now?
I don't know whose store is there now. It is 2 doors below Riola's real estate office.
So the next one down would be where McAndrews and Perrotin were. And then the next thing down is a dollhouse place.
There was that probably is, it was an alleyway that went, there were steps that went down between the two.
I see.
And we were on the river side
I see, right.
of that for 2 years.
I see.
And they didn't have any kindergarten in the early days.
Mm-hmm.
But when my brother started the school, which was about 1900 or 1901, I don't know which.
Mhm.
They had a kindergarten in the building next to the tallest building on Main Street, next to the firehouse. I can't.
Oh, let's see, the tallest building.
Well, I say tall, it's a
yeah.
2 or 3 story house with a square top on it.
Well, was that up the hill from the firehouse?
No,
or-
no, it was still on the village side of the firehouse,
I see. Where the youth center would be now, or?
below the youth center.
Yeah, there are a couple of high stories.
And
yeah.
below the youth center. In the youth center place was people named, I don't know, Sigurgen, lived in. They had to go in the schoolyard and across the tiny wood bridge to get to this house. But their name wasn't Sigurgen. I forget what their name was.
Archer was there for a
No,
while.
that Archer didn't live there.
I
These
see.
people lived there. It was sort of in the back.
Mhm.
But Archer's wagon or carriage place,
Mhm.
it did have a name, carriage house, not carriage house, carriage repair or
Mhm. Right.
that's right.
Wheelwright.
Front.
Wheelwright. Is
Wheelwright,
one thing
yes,
that we've
yeah,
seen about
yeah.
Archer.
Then the
Right.
other one, well, the blacksmith shop was on Broadway, next to Baker's.
Up next to the funeral parlor. Yeah.
Next to Baker's. And this
Right.
baker lived in that house.
Yes.
In the funeral parlor house.
I see.
And in that Wheelwright's house, it was a family lived upstairs
Mhm.
named Mitchell. Mitchell. I couldn't get it out.
Mm.
Since I don't want this on there.
Yeah.
And that's as much as I know in a way. And the house next door that the young cracks live in now,
Mhm.
that I think did belong to the Christie estate.
Yes. There's an underground passage there.
Oh,
you
is
know.
it? That I didn't know.
Well, Carol told me that in the basement, or no, I guess in the basement, they found a brick, the entranceway to something that looks like it goes underneath the road.
It wasn't the brook that went under the road.
No, it's
Under the house too.
yeah.
Because the brook goes under there somewhere, right through there too.
Yes. The
Brook, I call it. I don't know.
yeah, the Chauncey River, Chauncey Stream, I guess.
Oh, I never knew the name of it.
Yeah.
And where the A&P is,
Yeah.
facing Main Street, the Englishes lived. Do you remember that?
Were they in the little house that was perched up on a level
On
with?
stilts like.
Yes.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. And then there were other houses. Now,
Oh, well, down a little further down, we call them. That's gone from me right now. But there were 2 or 3 or 4 cottages there.
Yeah. Right.
And they were owned by the people who, in my time, lived across the street. They probably had been built a long time before, but the people lived in the back between the Farragut house.
The Farragut house.
The
Now, where
Farragut
is
house.
it?
That's
Oh,
the
yes,
it's the
right.
Farragut
All right,
house,
yes.
And I can't think of their names. The 2 ladies that I know. They own an awful lot of Hastings.
They did. Are they on this map here, by any chance?
DeVoe.
DeVoe. They may be on that map. We're looking at the 1881 map of the village
Oh,
of
they must
Hastings.
have been there. Those
Yes.
houses weren't, but they...
Now you see
It's
how Hastings was in those days with all the big estates. This was the village area.
Yeah, and that was Constant Street.
Then there was sort of a development south of Washington. You see all the lots are laid out down there.
Yeah.
And
No bridge.
no bridge at all. And see, Uniontown was laid out by that time, but they hadn't sold very many houses. Do you know anything about was there a development down there?
That I don't know.
No.
That I don't know.
Right. Well, now, so
I
then
know that Page's house was a Capron house.
it was.
That was the house that my husband's grandparents lived in, the great-grandparents.
This is the little brown house across the street from where Mrs. Capron lives now. And so your great your great-grandparents.
It's not mine.
Oh, yeah, your in-law.
Yeah.
Lived over there.
Not over there, up where Pages live.
Oh, I thought you meant over here, where
No,
Martha
up here
is.
Pages.
Oh, I'm sorry, I take that back. It isn't the brown house across the street. It's up at the curve of High Turn. Yes.
And
Do you know how old that house is? No.
must be very old.
Yeah, it is. I
It must be
understand.
very old.
Very old.
Edward Page can, if he wanted to, could tell you, because he went over to White Plains and had it searched.
I see. Right. Well, we probably have that information.
So that's it.
Yeah. Well, May, so then when you went to second, third grade, then, and fourth grade, I
The
think you said.
fourth grade, we went up to the new school and put our names all in the cornerstone.
Oh, in the new George Washington.
In the first building,
Right.
and that was.
You mean you wrote your names and put them in the cornerstone?
They all did, yeah.
Oh, isn't that
every
nice?
pupil of the school had written a slip of paper, and they were put in there, and then the rest of the school was filled over them.
I see.
So if that school's torn down, they're going to find that in there, and probably other things with it.
Oh, yeah.
For posterity.
Yes, and they say the cornerstone at the municipal building has things in it, too.
Well, of course, that's not nearly that
No.
old.
No. Right.
I don't remember. I know I didn't put anything in, but I was at the reception for the cornerstone of that building when it was built.
Right.
There used to be private estates on that street.
Yes, we have pictures of them.
Oh. The only one I remember is Brown, up on the other end.
Yes, we have a beautiful picture of that brown house. That was a beautiful place.
I don't remember the house at all, but I remember the kids. Florence was the oldest. Then there was Harry. He's a rascal. And then it seems to me Nelson, and yet it wasn't Nelson. I don't know. And there was Ross. Ross was one that was, he was a friend of my brother's. He and the McKernan boys and my brother were all buddies together.
I see.
The McKernans lived in one of those 4 houses that few people have given a name to. I don't know who.
The Cattenhorn houses.
I think so.
Yeah. Let me stop this for a minute. What I wanted to say, can we talk a little more now? You don't have any. Remember your parents or your grandparents?
No, they weren't here. My grandparents weren't in America.
That's right. Your in-law, I should say.
No, I know nothing about. I never knew them.
Yeah, right.
I knew my brothers-in-law,
Right.
all of them, but not.
May, were any memorabilia handed down to you, like?
No. If there is any,
Yeah.
it really should have gone. It evidently went to Harry Capron, Florence Pulver's father.
I see.
Then I made her very angry with me. This is turned off, isn't it?
No, it's on, but we'll erase it. You want me to stop it?
Yeah.
What is the connection between the Capron family and the Pulver family?
Well, right at this point, Harry Capron's daughter married John Pulver. Of this generation.
So Florence Pulver is a Capron?
She is a Capron.
I didn't realize that.
She is the youngest daughter of my husband's oldest brother. Harry was the oldest, then Caleb, and then Howard.
I see.
So they're all dead now.
Yeah, right.
And Florence is the only one left of her. She had a sister, Edna.
I remember Edna. The name, I don't know that I ever met her. Yeah.
No, she was the older, I'm sure. I don't remember just how old she was, but Florence is over 70, so.
Right. So that connected up the Caprons with the Pulvers, and the Capron family again. Now, who is left in Hastings? John, you said on.
The Capron family.
Yeah.
Robert Capron is Howard Capron's oldest son,
I see. And where does Robert Capron live?
he lives in the apartment house on the Seidenberg estate.
In the Hastings Gardens.
Yeah, in the
I
Hastings
see.
Gardens, and he
Right.
works for Chevrolet.
I see. How old is he? About, I mean, you know.
Let's see. I think he's going to be about 63 or 64.
I see. And is he married? Does he have children?
Oh, yes, he's married, and he has the married children. His children
see.
are married, too.
Right. And now of the Pulver family, there is who's left in Hastings of the Pulver family?
Oh, boy, don't ask me.
A lot of them.
Well, in a way, a lot of them. Well, let's see, how can I go? As far as I know, there is, John just died recently.
Mm-hmm.
Stanley is the next.
Mm-hmm.
And then Grace McGavin is the youngest one of the Henry Pulver's family.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know, actually, if what you can make out of their history at all, but they and the Caprons, as you can gather, are very old families here.
Right.
And they have intermarried.
Uh-huh.
Married to Vincent.
I don't know that we saw Pulver on the census, the 1880 census. Joan did make a list for me.
Well, they must be. How years would be.
You know, we were very disappointed when we went to the White Plains Library and saw the microfilm of the 1880 census. We could not reproduce it. They don't have the facilities. It comes out, you can't read it. But we did take down by hand the names of people that had occupations. That, for instance, here it is here. Joan wrote down Jacob Washburn, school principal.
I don't know. Eloise Wheeler, I think he was a music teacher, if I'm not mistaken. McClave was a...
Wilson McClave. Over
McClave
here
was a
it says
blacksmith.
blacksmith.
Yeah. There it is. And George Baker. And,
Undertaker.
and his father before him was.
His father before him,
wait a
George
minute.
Baker.
George Baker. Was George Baker the father? And that's right. George Baker was the father, I guess.
This is the father, because
Yeah,
this is in
that's the father.
1880.
And then there was Eugene Baker next. That's Mrs. Walsh's father.
I see, right. So of the Baker family, the George Baker family in the 1880 census, the Walshes, Mrs. Walshes, are left in Hastings.
Yeah.
We sort of were wondering if you knew if there were any,
Wheeler, I never
descendants.
knew anybody. He was a loner in a way. He had a little store on Constant Street, I'll have to say.
Yes.
Right around the corner from the corner house. What is that? Reader had a store there, but before Reader, somebody else had it. It's vacant now. It's the Centennial headquarters.
Oh, yeah, right.
He had you had to go up 2 or 3 stairs.
Mm-hmm. Who are any descendants of any of these people that you can read there?
Mm-hmm.
That are in Hastings now? Because
Archard. There is somebody here named Archard, but still Archard. Archard House is the one where the lunchroom is on Main Street, not Main Street, Wolverton Avenue.
Oh, yeah, where the
house is the same house.
I see.
Neppert, I don't know. He must have died a long time ago, but they lived, some Nepperts it must have been his daughters or granddaughters of the Charlotte Neppert, who would be my age now, and I am 87.
Mm-hmm.
So
A beautiful 87, I should say.
thank you. And so that name is, but I didn't know them. She lived, Charlotte Neppert lived in one of those 4 houses.
The Cattenhorn houses.
I can't think of them at all.
I see.
And she lived with 2 old ladies. And the older people, I guess, the kids, we didn't think anything of it at all. But somewhere along the line, she was called Charlotte Neppert, but I don't know what their name was that she lived with. They were her aunts, by the way.
I see.
But there was a rumor that she was an illegitimate child of one of them. But that's only a rumor.
Right.
And
let's go back up here. You missed a few. What about Martin?
well, I don't know. No, when you say broker, I don't recollect that at all.
We wondered if brokers
the Martins I know are on the only Martins I know was a man who was tax collector for the village for many years.
Right.
So and he wasn't educated to be a broker.
Mm-hmm. We didn't know whether broker was someone who sold something, not especially stocks,
well,
but
that might be. But
like
broker,
wheat
broker
or
it says stocks.
yeah,
today.
I know. But I think in the old days, somebody that sold wheat or staples, you know, maybe perhaps
well,
to the
that
grocery
could be,
store.
but I don't know. But he was
Right.
there was a Martin,
Mm-hmm.
and I can't think what his name was. He'll come to one of these days, but I don't know. And these mills, of course, are not related to the, I don't think, to the mills.
No, these people had a house there in downtown Hastings behind the old bank building. You know the bank building on Main Street?
Yeah.
There was a house in
I
there.
remember
That's
when
where.
that was Mill's property.
Yeah.
You know, there was nobody there that I know of.
Right. Well, they
vacant
had a
property.
home in there.
Oh. I don't know. That one I don't. Of course, Archer.
Mm-hmm.
And Nefford would be this
Yeah, the
family.
woman that you were talking about.
And, no.
I think what we'll do is I will leave this list with you and ask you if you would look it over and see if you can remember if there are anybody in Hastings that might be descendants of these people, because I think we should...
Now, this is wrong. Bubbert.
Oh, is it?
Burbert.
See, of course, the census was written by beautiful script. You know the old, what was the name of that? Penmanship?
Spencerian?
Yeah, something like that. And sometimes it was so beautiful it was illegible.
Oh, I see what you mean. Oh,
So let me
no,
change
that wasn't Spencer.
Let me change that.
D-U-R-D. B-U-R-B-E-R-T.
What we would really like to know is, where did these people live? I mean, here are the houses, here are the names, and we can't, there's no way for us to put a finger on, you know, except for a very few.
Well, in my
where they lived.
recollection of the Burberts, they lived around on Maple Avenue in that little stone house.
They lived in the little the little orange kind of stone house.
I don't know. I thought it
Sandstone?
was a block stamp. I don't know whether it was a block of stone of some kind. Anyways, a little
Yeah,
house.
right. That's where the Burberts lived.
Yeah.
Okay, let's keep going. Maybe you know where some other people live. John?
No.
No.
Snyder. That sounds a little bit. Miller.
Picnic Grove. It says John Snyder owned a picnic grove.
I did.
No? All right. Okay.
But the Millers, Mrs. Miller, I don't know if Miller was a grocer or not, but they did have a grocery store on the corner where the shoe store is now.
In Main Street and
Main
Warburton.
Street and Warburton.
Right.
And then Tompkins had his up where the building has just been renovated, next to the firehouse.
The one that's north of that, where Sneaker City was? No.
The Sneaker City was on Main Street.
No, where are you talking about? What are you talking about? Constant Street?
No, well, it was Constant
Yeah.
Street then.
Which house has been renovated in Constant Street?
One of those stores that they got all kinds of trash, I call it, a trashy store, across from Bob's Dearly Power.
Oh, yes, where the Smallheises were.
Yeah.
Right, now who was it that lived there?
Tompkins.
Oh, had his grocery store there.
Oh,
This is delicious tea, Jane. Oh, it's good. It's very good. I must be thirsty. You see what we're doing? We'd like to put the names, the names from the census
But you know
onto the
what
map.
a good recording session would do?
What's that?
And you would come with this, and Martha and my mother are talking.
Oh, yeah.
Oh. You can't believe it.
Yeah.
But I mean,
Well, that's
they
what
really
we should do.
delved into it, actually.
Right.
Let those,
Right.
you're young.
Yeah,
So
I don't
it's
know
hard for you to ask
the right question.
where was this and where was
Right,
that.
right. Well, we'll get
I
them.
think, but that would be...
Well, now
Because
that
I've gone through so many of those conversations that
Yeah.
it's amazing.
Well,
And now I'm getting so old myself. Once in a while, I can interject something.
well, I'll tell you that Martha is down at our archives all the time. She works very hard for the
Yeah,
Historical
she's
Society.
very
And so
good.
they're all sitting around doing their little jobs, and she keeps coming out with these things. If somebody says, get a pencil, quick.
No, it's true.
Write
And
it
of course,
down.
she's a lot younger than my mother, but when you get the two of them together, and she'll sort of, well, wasn't this here, May, or wasn't that?
Yeah,
And
and it gets the
then
ball
they
rolling.
get into it,
Right.
yeah.
Oh, well, we'll be back now that May can see
Because
that
that
she
isn't...
Well, I tell you
You
what,
don't-
if
you're
I
not
could
speaking
get
into a
down, I
microphone.
think that everybody might like to hear the story. if I could
Because
get down there.
Yes,
You're almost one
right.
of the oldest people
Of
here
course.
in Hastings, Mother.
Of
I know
course.
Actually.
Isn't it awful to hear?
No, really, why I think she said, I don't want to be quoted or I'm afraid to be wrong is, I think she's been reading this. I shouldn't, that's not on, is it?
Yes, it's on. I'll shut it. You want me to shut it off?
Just till I mentioned
Okay. Isaac Ferguson. What about Isaac?
He's a lumber dealer. He's a coal man.
Yeah.
And he was my mother-in-law's second husband.
Oh, for heaven's sakes.
Mrs.
house, right?
Yeah, Mrs. Ferguson. When
She lived in this house.
but it was her son, Isaac Ferguson's son. She was married to Edward Ferguson.
I see.
And Eva McConnell is a Ferguson.
Oh, yes. Right.
Her mother was their only sister.
Uh-huh. Right. And
I see it as Burkitt. I think that's, I hate to correct this, but I think it was Brinkerhoff.
there was a Brinkerhoff.
That's
Right.
Burkitt.
All right, let me put a question mark. It says here, flagman.
Yeah, well, it could be. He could have been. They had men at the crossing
So
of the
you think
railroad.
it could have been
I
Brinkerhoff?
think so.
I'll put that in parentheses here then, Brinkerhoff. Okay. Do you have any idea where he lived? Yeah,
Down on James Street,
I see.
the oldest house that's in there, but it's on this end of James Street near High.
Let's see if it's on this map.
I couldn't see it anyway
I'll take a
because
look.
I can't read it.
Yeah, all right, let's see. Cedar Street, Pine Street, James Street. There's a
James,
little house on the
James.
corner.
No, that was Gherkin's house.
That was Gherkin's house. And unfortunately, the name of Uniontown blocks out the rest. There's a house over on Cedar Street.
No, this
Yeah.
isn't near Cedar Street. It's on James.
I wonder if this one way down in here, let's see, James Street. So that's way over on Rose Street, actually, isn't it? This little house here. Yeah. See how they were scattered? They were very scattered.
Oh yes, it was. It was
Yeah.
only
Right.
there was a Gherkin's house on the corner, and then another house on the other side, right next to the house that Martha's building, and then this house that we call Brinkerhoff House. Now I don't know whether it's this Brinkerhoff, but it's evidently a relative
I see, right.
because they lived in that house.
Right. On James Street.
Oh, you did put Brinkerhoff down.
I did. I put it, I should put a
Okay.
question mark after it then. Let's see, did you recognize anybody else up here further? You kind of skipped down there.
Pete Young, yes.
Where did he live?
I don't know. I think they lived on the older family, but Mrs. Losey in Dobbs Ferry. And what the heck is her name? Oh, you know her. She worked in the building and loan.
Building alone.
Grace.
LaFay? She didn't work in the building. LaFay, but she didn't.
That's her.
That's her? All right.
Yeah, she's one of the
That's one of the same
some
family?
of her family. No, she was she was young. Her mother married younger Pete Young. As I gather, this is the very old one. Pete Young was not a plumber.
Yeah,
This
I
must
see.
be Pete Young's father. This
Right.
would be Grace LaFay's grandfather or great-grandfather.
I see, right.
So. And Lee, the only Lee I know were the people on the big farm over where
Yes.
developed
Is that,
it
let's
now.
see, what's the first name? Michael. I'm not sure whether
I
that
don't
was
know
the name
that
or
either.
not.
And John Slachter, I don't know if there's any of them here now.
He was a carpenter.
I don't remember. It was a carpenter. But there were a couple of Schlachters. Schlachter was a very old man when I was a kid, so you know he was a very old man. And he lived in a little house off the aqueduct on Washington Avenue. And I don't know what he did for a living. He might have been a plumber for all I know, because he used to come up and my father, up, the greenhouse, and my father would give him little dainties, a little bit of flour or something at the Easter time. And he was the only one that ever gave me an Easter present.
Ah.
He always came, he brought an Easter egg or something with him for me. And that's how I remembered him. And the Wills, of course, you knew them. That isn't the thing. Yeah, I don't say you knew them, but
That's the same family that Frank Wills.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. Andrew Wills, Frank Wills. They were on. Is that Spring Street?
Yeah. Right.
They lived in there, and then they lived within one branch. Miss Wills lived where the tinsmith shop was.
The tinsmith shop, where was that?
Well, the driveway, I think, to the funeral parlor was actually where the tinsmith shop was.
You mean to the baker funeral parlor?
No, to the other one.
The Hastings funeral parlor down
that street.
I see.
That's where it was, right next to it was an empty corner where Kaufman built the hotel.
I see.
And then right in there was the Wills property was in there.
And the tinsmith was in there.
That's where his shop was, in that area. And the family lived around on Maple Avenue, and I think they lived in one half of that double family house they have there. Two families.
Oh yeah, right. Let's see. What do we have down here for occupation for Frank Will? Tinsmith. That's right.
That's right. That's absolutely right. And Steckert was a barber. That's true. But his son, Harry Steckert, was the postmaster.
Oh yeah, right. I recognize that name.
Under,
so where do you suppose his barber shop was? Do you have any idea? This Steckert, Harry's father.
I have an idea that as long as I can remember, there were barber shops on Spring Street.
Right, where Bollinger and...
Bollinger, I don't know. The first one that I remember, what is his name? Now that name is gone for me again, too.
He was a barber?
Yeah. And they used to come up to Seidenberg's every day to shave the gentlemen before they went to New York.
Oh.
What money meant in those
days.
days.
Instead of going to the barber,
they never went.
The barber came
every morning to them.
Right.
And
can you tell us maybe, Mae, what your early recollections of what Hastings was like? I mean, the streets were the streets paved?
No.
And how did people get around?
Well, there was no public transportation except the railroad, and that's and the riverboat.
Right.
That was
the Raleigh.
The Raleigh.
Be up on the Raleigh.
Up on the Raleigh.
Yeah, we all know that.
Mr. Emma, what was her name? He had a hardware store on Main Street, and if he didn't have anything, it's all coming up on the Raleigh.
Right.
And the Raleigh was quite a boat.
Yeah. We have pictures of her.
Yeah.
Bill Ewan has a lot of that.
That I can remember.
Yeah.
I mean, that would travel the river.
Right.
I think that Edith McConnell's father had shares in that. Owned it. I think so.
Right.
But,
and so people got around with
horses and wagons, horse and carriages.
Were most
and Shank's mare.
What's that? That's walking?
That's walking.
Yeah.
That just walked many miles.
Right. Did most of the people in Hastings have horses?
No.
So a lot of people just either walked.
Either walked or didn't go.
Or could you rent?
Not that I know of.
Yeah.
Oh, they did have livery stables.
Yeah.
I can remember that.
So you could rent a horse
and buggy.
one.
I think that Elsie Wagner's Uncle Gus had one that he hired out.
I see.
And he used to meet the trains. He was like a man that was, we call him express man, but that wasn't what he was. He had, as much as I remember, he did.
He went down with a horse and wagon and met the trains.
Met the trains and brought people back. I remember that years ago, well, I know it was years ago, I was only a little child, and I had to have my tonsils out.
Mm-hmm.
And my mother was very determined that I should not stay in the hospital. And Seidenberg's made an appointment with a doctor in New York,
Mm-hmm.
and she took me into New York. I can remember it almost as
Yeah.
yesterday. And they gave me a chloroform, I guess, in a chair,
Mm-hmm.
not lying down, in a
Yeah.
chair, and took the tonsils out, and then let me lay down for a little while, and then she brought me home.
By train.
Like,
Yeah.
imagine that
I
kind of
know.
operation.
Yes.
And that was very rare in those days.
Right.
And then Gus Wagner met us at the station
Mhm.
with a station wagon, I think we called it.
Mm-hmm.
And
Was it a covered over thing, or was it
yeah,
open?
yeah.
It was
No,
covered
it was covered
over.
over. Oh, yes.
Yeah.
It was a passenger.
Right. Now, so what years are we talking about here?
Well, my mother died in 1904,
Mm-hmm.
and
How old were you when you had your
I
tonsils out?
don't know, I must have been about 6.
Mm-hmm. So what year would that, when were you born?
I was born 93.
93, so that would have been
I'd
close to the
been-
turn of the century.
Yes, yeah,
Right.
around that time.
Talking about having your tonsils out, etc. What was the hospital and doctor situation in Hastings when you were young?
The doctor, the only doctor in Hastings that I know is Dr. Lyman,
Mm-hmm. Lyman.
Lyman.
Yeah.
And if it goes back before his time, I don't know anything about that at all.
Mm-hmm. So where was Lyman located?
Well, I believe now the first building he lived in it and had his office there too. He had a horse and wagon and a colored man to drive him.
Mm-hmm.
And I think the rectory of the Catholic Church is the building now.
Let's see. So now the Catholic Church, and then it would be, where is the rectory? Is it up the hill?
Up the hill, yeah,
Right.
halfway up the hill.
I see. Right.
It
It's a
was just, I couldn't tell you just which house it was, but
I
it was
see.
right in there.
Right.
And then he moved into the corner house, the big house.
I
was,
see.
I think that was Brandt's house, if I'm not mistaken.
Brandt?
Brandt,
We
B-R-A-N-D-T.
thought Brandt lived in the VFW.
He did live there.
Oh,
He did live there.
yeah.
That was before he built this house up on the hill.
Oh, so we're Annuello, or there's some
Well,
sort
yeah,
of a...
yeah, there's a real estate
And
agent
and there's
there.
a doctor in there now, too. You know.
Yeah, I know who you
Rowell.
Rowell, yeah.
So that's where
And
Dr. Lyman
then, yeah,
moved.
yeah. Then
Mm.
after from that,
Mm.
he built his house around on Broadway.
And which house was that?
Dr. Dorfer had it.
Oh, yeah.
And now
then,
Dr.
you know, Jerry
Jerry
Finkelstein.
has it.
I see. And when people were sick, from what I gathered, they usually tried to treat themselves, and then they didn't call the doctor right away the way we do. They had all the home remedies and everything, and then finally they would call the doctor, right? Can you tell, is that the way you figure it happened?
Well, we didn't.
Mm.
Yeah, I can't say it for other people.
Yeah.
We didn't. My mother had the doctor right away.
Mhm.
In fact, he almost lived at our house. My mother died of TB in those days.
I see.
And they treated it all wrong in those days.
They did.
You get up early in the morning and take a big long walk.
Oh, yeah.
And that's the worst thing in the world for TB.
You should get plenty of rest.
You should have rest, yeah.
Right. Can you talk about any of the other diseases that you remember people having when you were young?
Not much. I know I had all the measles and mumps and all that
Right,
stuff.
and of course there wasn't any cure for a lot of those diseases, and no.
Well, I don't remember what they
smallpox
gave
or-
us for it, but
Right.
we had Dr. Lyman, and whatever he prescribed, I had.
So when he said, "All right, now you've got to go to the hospital," if you didn't go to New York,
There was no going to the hospital in those days.
there wasn't, the Dosbury Hospital wasn't.
The
there.
only time that I was grown up, pretty well grown up. My father and I went to the Cornerstone when the Cornerstone Dosbury Hospital was laid.
Right.
But there was a little thing they called Dosbury Hospital, the Lutheran Church.
I see.
Not the building, because that's a brand new building. They have a little building in there, a one room affair, and that's they call it Duxbury Hospital.
That's where the Lutheran Church was, which
Is now.
is now, which is on Ashford Avenue,
Yeah.
but closer to the center of town than the Dobbsbury Hospital. Well, St. John's was in existence,
Oh yeah.
and it was in existence at the time of our centennial, because when we look at the newspapers like the New York Times, we see ads for fairs. St. John's will have a ladies' auxiliary will be giving a fair, that sort of thing. What did people do for amusement when you were very young?
That I don't know.
You never had any fun, right?
I never had any fun. I went to work when I was 14 years old.
That's
And left
very
home.
interesting. Very interesting. A lot of young people work at a young age.
And I can thank for what education I have to Mr. William Reese Williams.
Tell me about that.
Well, there isn't much to tell, except he knew I couldn't, that I had to leave home and go to work. I worked as a servant girl.
Mm-hmm.
Slavey is actually what you were in those days.
And where did you work?
Yonkers,
Mm-hmm.
at a family named Titler.
Mm-hmm.
And I was actually a slave for $10 a month on my board
Where did they live?
on Woodworth Avenue.
Woodward. That sounds familiar, but I can't.
Woodworth, it's 1 block toward the river from Warburton.
Oh yes,
And
right. And in those days, those homes were
they
lovely.
were very
I'm
nice
sure.
homes in those days.
And right on the river.
Yeah,
Beautiful.
Yeah, very nice.
And so you were the upstairs maid or the downstairs
Upstairs,
maid?
nothing. I was a slavey, could plain English.
Yeah.
I scrubbed floors, peeled vegetables, did the ironing. We had a washing woman, that we did have.
Mm-hmm.
And that poor woman, they had a grocery store. And that poor woman was a very, very nice woman.
Mm-hmm.
She was not a servant type by any means, as I can remember. She owed a big grocery bill. And to pay the grocery bill, she came and did their wash.
I see.
That was her.
In those days, there was no such thing as unemployment or
Oh,
Social
nothing, no.
Security. You
No,
worked
no,
or you
that,
starved.
That had started
Yeah.
after I went to work this last time.
So you either worked or you starved, right?
Well, you didn't live in luxuries if you were out of work like
Yeah.
that. You didn't live in luxuries anyway.
Yeah.
It was a big deal when we were poor people, of course, but it was a big deal when we got oranges. And one of the things my father loved was coconuts, and that's as soon as the coconuts come to the market, that we had, and we drank the milk out of it.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. So you went to work, and but even as a slavey, you must have gone into downtown Yonkers to what? Did they have any kind of affairs, or what was going on?
They had stores there, but they had Culver's store and the 5 and 10 cent store.
Mm-hmm.
But out of $10 a month, you don't have much to spend.
Yeah, but didn't the churches have socials, or what did people do? Did they have dances?
I don't remember. They went to church socials, but not that much. I have any idea. I wasn't in any social life at all.
I see. Right.
So,
Then after you left your slavey position, what happened?
I went to work in the carpet shop.
Oh, you did too. I worked there.
Did
Yeah.
you?
Oh, yeah.
I was a picker.
A picker. What did a picker do?
Pickers inspected the goods, the carpets after it came off the loom, and filled in by hand
Mm-hmm.
and a needle
Oh, yeah.
any of the threads that were out.
Right, I see. Made perfect out of imperfect.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, corrected.
Right. And where did you live when you worked there?
I lived in Yonkers,
Mm-hmm.
in a boarding house.
I see. Were there, what was that like? Were there other people from the mill living there? Or?
No, I just lived with these two old ladies.
Mm-hmm.
And then I got married from there.
I see. Right. Well, listen, let's look at this questionnaire here. Let's see, we talked about the Caleb Capron that's on the census. And did we discuss where he lived? I can't
I don't
remember.
know.
Do you know where he
up
lived?
here.
Oh, in the
Where Pages
yeah,
live now.
that's right. At the corner of High Turn, in the very old house there. And what was his livelihood?
carpenter.
He was a carpenter. And then, was he born in Hastings?
So far as I know, yes.
Right. Do you know, have you any conception of why his family came over from, where did they come from?
The nearest I can recollect is England.
I see.
I think I read in a book an old, what would you call it? What do you,
History book? Or?
not a history, no. It's like a family,
But not a Bible, but a family
No.
tree? Genealogy?
family tree sort of genealogy, yes, that's
Yeah.
it. But that, it all stopped, that book was published in 1850 something.
I see.
And this man came as a cabin boy
Mm-hmm.
into New England,
Mm-hmm.
and that's where most of them were.
I see.
And from that on, I have
And then they
nothing more.
just spread south.
I don't know any more about them at
Right.
all.
Right. It's interesting to look at the census and see, in the 1880 census, they asked people where their ancestors came from. Where did your father come from? Where did your grandfather come from? We had wanted to find out from people who had ancestors in Hastings was something about food. Did they grow their own food, or was it brought in?
We did.
You grew your own
Of
food.
course. That was one of my father's jobs.
Yeah. Oh, that's right. Yeah. As gardeners.
And then we bought from Tompkins.
Grocery.
And then Murphy was on the corner.
That's the one on the corner. You were
Yeah.
trying to think of the name.
Yeah, Murphy.
And did you have people that came around in wagons? Or?
Oh, yes, we had peddlers.
Mm-hmm.
Who
Yeah.
was the peddler?
Yeah.
No, that wasn't then. That was,
That was later.
My time. Well,
but I'm
You're not old enough, Jean.
We're talking about
you know, I'm
all
not
right.
your age, but Phyllis's age, Eileen's age.
Yeah. Right.
I went to where is Eileen?
She's in West Hartford, Connecticut.
Oh,
Yeah. So,
you were Mabel's age.
yeah,
Around
right.
that age.
I was. So people did go to the grocery store,
Oh,
but they
yeah.
also
Oh,
had their own gardens, probably.
Well, though I don't know about other people. I know that we all had, my father grew all the vegetables we had.
Right.
And
And I'm sure you ate very well. Do you think food came up on the Raleigh, or where did people get milk from? You know?
Their cows in the yards,
Yeah.
right?
no, I think there were farmyards around. And I think even in my day of housekeeping, you were able to buy the farm.
Like was the Leaf Farm still in?
Lee's farm was there, but I don't know. But the only thing I remember about Lee's farm was that they had fruit.
There's your pair of cardinals right there behind you. Yeah.
There's Papa.
They had fruit. They grew fruit.
They grew strawberries, and I don't know what. The kids around here used to go there as part-time workers and harvest the fruit.
I see. And then he would sell it himself or take it to the...
No, he'd sell it, but they didn't take it into New York then.
I see. Right.
No, we didn't have that big. But we did have grocery stores and butcher stores. Thelma, by the way, was a butcher.
How do you spell that?
Felmuth.
I see.
Thelma.
Uh-huh.
And he had a store on the corner of Washington Avenue
Mm-hmm.
and
Where Mandrick's store is now, maybe.
Maybe it might be right
Yeah.
on the corner.
Yeah.
And he lived across the street, and he had one side of that stone house. I think Thomas Bernardi owned it, and I don't know what.
Is that the one that's on the north side toward the bridge from Washington?
Yes, yeah.
Yeah.
And
It's sort of a double house,
double
is it? Or-
house. He lived
yeah.
on one side, and Dorfers lived on the other.
I see. Dr. Dolphy,
Dr.
was, was he?
Dorfer's mother and father.
I see. Right.
And they had, as I can remember, Dr. Dorfer was older, and Walter was older, and Frank was my age.
Mm-hmm.
And I think he married a girl, her last name was Perrin. Well, I'm not sure of that either. And he lived then, he built a house up on, right in back of Dr. Lyman's. I don't know what that street is in there.
Is it Elm or Fraser? Elm Place.
Elm, Fraser
Yeah.
is the one down.
Yeah. What did Dr. Dolph's mother and father do? I mean, what did his father do? Do you know? Yeah. Right. So butcher shops, I guess
Was Thelma.
they, all grocery stores were separated into different kinds of
Not
groceries.
all, but I think, I don't know of any that was sold the general store
Yeah,
in Hastings, but
right.
there was Thelma's there
Yeah.
and Briar's on Spring
Oh
Street.
yeah, we have some pictures of that.
Briar's.
Right. What other kind of stores? Were there dress goods stores?
Yes. I think the lawyer, what's his name? On the corner, well, let's put it, where the pizza is, and
Oh, yeah, that's,
my time was a post office and a general store.
I see. In the same building?
The same thing.
I see. You went into the general store and
all general store and post office,
I see.
all in the one room.
I see.
And
Right.
it was Garlic owned it.
Oh yes.
Fred Garlic.
Right. Do you remember the post office being any place else?
Yes,
Yeah.
I do. Then it's down the street from that. Oh, you fellas are not a bit scared. Down Spring Street,
Mm.
there was a little store. I don't know. It seems to me that was a shoemaker, but yet I'm not sure of that. But next to that is a bigger building, and I think the lawyer, he lives up here. I think he has his office in there. Jewish.
You mean Glassman, Bernie Glassman?
Yes.
Yeah.
In there was Farrington's dry goods store,
Mm-hmm.
and they lived upstairs over it.
Right.
And
But the post office was ever.
then the post office moved in there after they moved out.
I see.
I think they died. I'm not sure, but
Somebody said that the post office moved around depending upon which political party got in.
Well, this
So
I
that
don't
who
know.
was the
only
postmaster?
only time I remember, and I don't remember who the postmaster was down there,
Mhm.
but I know that Fred Garlic was
Right.
up in that,
Right.
and had been for quite. Was there for that too? He probably moved down there too.
Mm-hmm.
Then down below that was Carrie's shoemaker.
I
The
see.
little, I imagine it's been torn down yet, I don't know. Right at the entrance to the parking lot now, as
Mhm.
you go alongside of it. And then next to that, Mrs. Myers had a shoe store.
And was it the same Myers that was a butcher?
No.
Different family.
No, this is a different family. This Mrs. Myers, yeah, and I don't know if maybe she was Miss Myers, but I think she's Mrs. There was Myers, the superintendent, over at the Jewish cemetery, and she was his sister.
Now, where is the Jewish family? Oh, that's over on Mount Hope.
Yeah.
That was there?
Upper Mount
Yes,
Hope.
I see. Right,
And
right.
and what other stores did we have? We had the bakery, the Haycraft Bakery shop
Oh, yeah.
up there, just where I went to school. And then they built the apartment house where Monzi's is now. Haycraft built
Oh,
that.
yeah. Oh, they did.
Haycraft Flats, we called it.
Uh-huh. Right. And how were... Those were probably some of the first apartments in Hastings,
I
weren't
guess
they?
they were.
And how do people
Oh,
feel?
Friends, I was older than that. Friends, you know what a Friends Flat?
Friends Flats. Where are
Friends
those?
Flat. The pizza place is in there now.
Across the street
Yeah,
from Haycroft.
yeah.
How do people feel about apartments in Hastings?
I don't know if they've been really thinking about it.
Yeah. Because it was sort of something new. People lived in houses before.
Yeah.
We noticed that in the census that a lot of people had other people living with them. They would list a family, and then they would list somebody laborer, or so people took in boarders.
Whoever did their work did, and a lot of people kept boarders.
Yeah.
A lot of in the turn of the century, as I'm talking about, not earlier than that. I don't know anything about that. But people would come from Europe. That's when most of them came over. We had practically no. Our population here were mostly Irish descent and German descent, and a few French.
Yes. Now that shows up in the 1880 census,
Does it?
and
Yeah.
when it says
We
where
got
did you...
no Polish or Slavish
No.
or Russian
Right.
until after that.
Right. And that's because the factories opened up.
The
isn't it?
factory dad brought them in.
Right. And we have an article out of, I don't know whether it's the Langmuir collection. Have you ever heard of the Langmuir collection?
No.
It's the most marvelous series of scrapbooks. pictures that Dr. Langmuir took of Hastings.
He's a wonderful.
And he cut out newspaper articles, and I think it's in there.
Oh,
They're down at the library. You should see them sometime. Now you would really get a lot of fun. In there it said that it is absolutely necessary that we find some place for people to live in this village. That workmen are living in Dobbs Ferry because they can't find.
Yeah.
So there was an overpopulation or lack of housing at one point, probably because.
The factory did it when it got bigger.
Yeah. Now, which factory is this you're talking about?
Well, it was right in that area was. I don't know if that was a chemical factory before Zinsser took it or not, but Zinsser's was in there. And then the National Conduct and Cable Company, which Anaconda bought out.
Right.
And then the Fog Factory.
Yeah, the Fog Factory. That was.
And I can't just. And in there was a Barnett lumber place off Washington Avenue, where the bridge goes over for the Anaconda now. You went across the tracks to that they were coal yards and lumber people.
Right.
Then you come up the other way, and there was the
Trainer Stoneworks. What was the Fog Factory? Was it Trainer Stoneworks? Do you remember?
I don't know what the name of it was.
And what's the other one?
You call it Asphalt Factory.
Abeloff? I can't remember. But we have a picture of the smokestack giving out fog, and it says underneath it the Fog Factory. I think that was from my year too.
And then the street went right out to across the tracks and right out to the river.
The Hastings Landing.
To the dock.
What was that like out there? This was, you go down Washington, you go across the bridge.
No, I don't know anything about there, but down the Dock Street, as we call it.
Oh, so that's down past where the railroad station is now.
Yeah.
And then straight out to the river.
Straight out. Well, then right across the track was the Beavers.
Hotel, International
Charles
Hotel.
Beavers Hotel.
Right.
And then next to that was Ferguson's coal yard. I don't know where the coal was there. Coal and lumber was kept there, but their office was in there.
Mm-hmm. Right.
My father used to take me with him. And old man Ferguson, the old grandfather's Ferguson, used to have peppermint candies, and I only went to get the peppermint candies.
So what else was over there on the way to the
Not that I
landing?
know of it. Nothing more that I know of
Right.
was over
And
there.
then
You went up the shoreline to the Tower Yacht Club.
I see, which was a beautiful thing in those days. Yeah.
That was nice.
But now when you went across past Beavers International, then were you very quickly at the dock?
Yes, the dock didn't go. It didn't. In my recollection, it didn't go too far out.
Right.
And yet it must have gone considerably, because the lumber yards were there.
Right.
There was the hotel, as they call it, and then the office building for Ferguson, and then he had to have lumber there.
Yeah.
And that was where his lumber yard was, and his coal yard. Go on.
So you wonder if there was a little spit of land sticking out there, if it was just
Well,
the shoreline the way it is now, and then the dock ran out from that.
No, I don't think so. I think the land ran out. The Anaconda isn't built, but the factory is built, but the land was there.
Yeah.
So evidently the land was there.
So the land was there, and Anaconda wasn't built on fill.
No.
Do you remember anything about the boats that used to come into that?
The Christina used to come. When the Christina came up at 4 o'clock, I had to go home from swimming.
I used to swim there.
At Seidenberg's had a boathouse.
I see.
It was our boathouse.
I see.
We were my brother and I were the only ones used it, and some of the kids from the village came up. So
Right. And there was a walkway across the tracks?
In the beginning, there was a walkway. We had no tracks weren't electrified.
Oh.
And when they electrified the tracks, the New York Central built bridges.
I see.
We had a bridge across.
Those footbridges. Yeah.
A footbridge, of course.
Right. And so when you saw the Christina go by, that was
my signal to go home and get dressed for supper.
I see. So how many times, did she go up and down the river many times a day? Or just
No, she only went once a day.
I see.
She went to New York in the morning, and from New York to Peekskill in the evening.
Did a
And
lot
then
of
there's
people,
a day line. A lot of people use it.
they commuted? Did people commute?
No, they didn't commute with it from here.
Mm.
That I don't think. I think most everybody commuted by train.
Mm-hmm. Right.
And when I was quite a big girl, I guess it happened. We got the trolleys.
Oh, yes.
First we got the bridge.
Right. Were you aware
I
when
walked
the bridge?
across the bridge on the risers
What are the? Oh, those are the before they put the.
before they put the floor on.
You did. How did you do
Remember,
that?
I didn't get beaten to death.
Oh my gosh, Mae!
We were
What did you
daredevils.
do?
We were daredevils.
And you rode on what, or you walked?
We walked
You walked
from
across.
Gertie to Gertie. I think.
Oh,
Yeah. Oh,
oh my!
a kid of mine did that. I'd kill him.
You know, we see pictures of that bridge, and that beautiful railing. That was the first railing that was up
I
there.
don't
We wonder
remember the
whatever
railing.
happened to that
I
railing.
don't know.
We is that a fire?
It sounds like an ambulance.
You've got to come down to the archives and look through our pictures. We have
Yeah, I'd
pictures.
like to. I'd
Yeah.
have to someday when I get help. Can get help up and down the stairs.
Yeah, they have that little elevator now. You know. You
Yeah,
sit
Martha
on it.
says it's very hard to get on.
You
to
sit
get
down.
off. Well, that
Yeah.
probably be all right. It's very hard. She said.
You have to have somebody to help you get off, probably. Make
yeah.
sure you have your balance.
So I was waiting for it because I
Yeah.
wanted to go. I could go up the stairs, but it'd take me forever. And if I bumped into
Yeah.
anybody, they'd knock me over without
Yes,
any trouble.
right, of
And
course.
that's no good.
No, of course not. But we do have pictures of that bridge, and of course it's been widened many times, twice since then, I guess.
I don't remember it
Yes.
being wide.
Yeah, it has been widened, and that's probably when the railings disappeared. But you remember the bridge went in, and then the trolley came north
Yeah.
from Yonkers.
First the trolley came as far as the village.
Hmm.
Then then the next thing you know, it came over here to the bottom of High Street.
Yeah, now, can you tell us anything about Little Coney Island that was down here?
I don't know too much about it. Martha and I have had quite a debate on that. I'm not sure she's right or I'm right. I'm not sure how either one are. But it was a little, then that man lived in Hastings on Constant Street and Warburton Avenue. They were apartments in there where Al's Market used to be.
Uh-huh, right.
There were all apartments there. There weren't stores. There was houses. And he lived there. I can't think.
They were houses.
No,
When you say
no,
apartments,
no.
they were built
They're
apartments.
built
I see.
all in one. Like
So when
two-
those apartments were built, they weren't built with the idea of having a store down below.
Evidently not.
I see. They just converted them afterwards. I see. Right. And so he lived there and took the trolley over to his place and opened it up
he
every
had a
day?
horse and wagon. I don't know where he kept the horse and wagon, but he had a horse and wagon, a pony. He had a pony cart, and he used to give rides with a pony.
Mm-hmm.
So, just a regular, and he was a dirty old man.
Mm.
His clothes were greasy.
Mm.
Big fat man, one of those.
Mm. But so when the trolley came to Uniontown, everybody started getting into town more frequently, or what change
Well, that I
did
don't
that
know.
make?
I don't know.
You weren't living here
No,
then, so
the trolley was here when I.
yeah. Do you have any idea why it's called Uniontown?
I think I haven't, but in my conception of this, it's a union between Hastings and Yonkers.
I see. I see.
I don't think it was intended to be a union town or even Hastings. I think it was supposed to be a part of Yonkers in this day.
I see.
Like
It's
the Pure Park is.
right. Right. It was interesting talking to Vyra McNeese, who lived
Yes,
over
she
on.
should know.
Yeah.
You know,
I never asked her
it says
that
here about
question.
somebody you should send this to. You know, there are some that they only do it. If they would only fill out now. Mrs. Durstein.
Mae Durstein.
Mae Devery.
Mae Devery Durstein. I remember her very well. And where does she live? Do you know?
I
Is
think she
in town?
lives in the apartment house up on
La
by the,
Beretta?
no, by the A&P. The terrace, is it?
Oh, Hastings Terrace.
I think so, and I'm not
Right.
sure.
Any other names you can give us?
And Vyra.
Mm.
And I can't think of her. Mrs. Winstanley, but I don't think and she lives on High Street here,
Mhm.
but I don't think you get any information out of her. She's a very, very quiet kind of a person.
Mhm.
You have to worm out of her whatever
Yeah.
you get, and she might not even talk to you.
Yeah, right.
And she means all right, but she doesn't. She feels, I don't know whether she feels that she's imposing on people or
Mhm.
they're imposing on her. I don't know
Mhm.
which. And let me see who else I can think of right now.
What about Florence Culver? Do you think she
Well, I wish she would.
Yeah.
Of course, she's not that old.
she might be able to?
So I told her to. And she said she's going to give her stuff for the Centennial.
Mm-hmm.
But she didn't say anything about the Historical Society. I said, why don't you go down and just, see something?
I was talking to her the other day over at one of the shopping centers, and I think I will give her a call. So, and can you think of any
and
other
of course,
people that?
Martha, you don't have to have Martha
Yeah.
was born here.
Right.
I don't know.
Mm-hmm.
Mrs. Schmidt, but a very old lady, but I don't think she'd even be able to.
We
talk
got a
to-
wonderful story from her.
Oh, from Russell Smith's mother?
Sally Jones, the teacher, did a long interview of her, but with writing,
Oh,
and
yeah,
turned it
yeah.
over to us, which was very nice.
Oh, yeah, well, that would be, because she
It
lived
was.
there a long time, too.
Right, they call that the Germantown or something?
Germantown, yeah.
Yeah, right. Let's see, I'm going to look at some questions here just to see if I can jog your memory about anything. It says here, this is a story I should ask a question. Do you recall any stories about the politics of the village?
No. I'm going to keep out of that.
Mrs. Capron was very active in politics in Hastings most of her life. A prime mover. do you want to talk at all about that?
No, I don't.
Even what political party you were, right?
No.
Let's see. Do you recall any stories about the people of the village 100 years ago? I guess you said no, you don't. Do you have any pictures? Do you have any objects? Who we should send the questionnaire to answer that?
Although getting to politics, I'll tell you
Yeah.
one thing that to me is humorous. We had a meeting down here long ago when I first became interested in politics in the 30s.
Mhm.
And Mrs. Steinschneider came with Mrs. Steinschneider. He was running for office. And we had a Miss Hogan, Miss Alice Hogan, who lived over in Terra Park. She was a school teacher and considered herself considerably above the rest of us. She was better educated than any of us, I guess. But to begin with, she was ranting. She sat on one side of me, and Mrs. Steinschneider sat on the other. And she was ranting about, I don't know exactly what she was doing, but she was giving Bill Steinschneider a terrible raking over. And Mrs. Steinschneider sat and wiggled and sat. This is funny. Sat and wiggled, and all of a sudden she couldn't take it any longer. So she leaned across me to Alice and she said, "Say, do you know who you're talking to? That's my husband." And she said it struck me so funny.
Oh, that's good. So that was your beginning
That was not
in
quite.
being
My
involved.
beginning was in 1930.
Mhm.
That's I'll say. Mrs. Glazer was the Republican district leader,
Mhm.
and the district then was only like two districts, Hastings and the Manor, and that's separated that. We didn't have 4 or 5 districts like we have now.
Right. Where did Mrs. Glazer live?
Well, she lived right over on the hill there, and one of the jobs that was given as a luxury in a way, a bit of a handout, was taking the census.
Oh, so you were a census
And
taker?
yes, and you had to take an examination.
Mhm.
And I thought, well, she had the job to do, and she couldn't take the examination. She couldn't pass it nohow. So she came to me. I had been friendly with her and had been going to meet. Had been a Republican all along anyway, but not active. And she gave me the job, for which I took the census. I took the examination, and we had to go to Tarrytown to get the results of our examination.
Where did you
And
take the examination?
it was a written one. You took it yourself.
They sent it to you?
They sent it to
I
you.
see.
You got it in White Plains.
Mm-hmm.
And I took the examination, and I studied, figuring I'd have to study because I didn't have much education to do this. So lo and behold, I can brag like I don't know what. I got the second highest in Westchester County.
May, my gosh, that's marvelous.
And no, it wasn't. It's just common sense. That's all. Just using common sense. Not that's any of it needed.
Uh-huh.
So I took the census, and Mr. Curry, Vira's father,
Yeah.
was the leader. And you couldn't give any information, but you could give names if you wanted to. And he asked me if I would give him the names of the people who were as a census taker, in the census.
Uh-huh.
And I didn't see any reason why I couldn't, so I gave the names of those that would be eligible to vote in a year or were new voters or what.
I see.
And he gave me $25 for that list, so
Wow.
that meant a lot. It was a lot of money in the
Sure.
30s to people. And then Mrs. Glazier quit the leader. She wouldn't take it. So Mr. Curry said, "Who else can take it but you?"
Ah.
So that's how I got into politics.
Right. And what was your title then? Republican chairman then,
No,
or what do they call it?
committee man at that time.
Committee
Committee woman at that time.
I see. Right.
But whatever district, or 20th district, I think it was supposed to be at that time.
I see.
Then I became vice chairman of the town of Greenburgh,
Right.
and with a voice in the county thing.
Right.
But that's all it amounted to.
Yeah.
And then when I became chairman of the village, I came because Fred Child was the chairman. And poor Fred had to quit the job. And he said, "What am I going to do? What am I going to do?" I was vice chairman. And he said, "I'm going to give it to you." I said, "I can't do it. I'm not able to do that business." "Oh, yes, you are. I'll help you." So I said, "Well, if you promise to help me, I'll take it." So I did. And he helped me, too. Actually, half the things, his decisions I made were his. We worked together. We never fought, but we worked together very well. So. Hello, Mama.
That's a female cardinal
Yeah,
Mrs. Capron's talking to.
yeah.
Is coming to get peanuts on the porch here.
I can't understand those little birds taking those big peanuts, but they choke them when you...
Yeah, you would. I wonder if they crush them with their beaks.
Oh, there she is. She's waiting.
Yeah.
Come on, you can come.
Well, tell me a little bit about what were the Seidenbergs like? What was that family?
Well, they were a very nice family, and they were very good to us. And they're quite a big family. There was Henry Seidenberg was the father, and Mary Seidenberg was the mother. Then there were daughters. There was Mrs. Holly. I think she was married to Holly before her name was Hattie. She was married, I think, before I knew it, thought anything about being friendly with them. Then they had Stella, who had a big wedding up here.
Where was that?
Yeah, Mrs. Buck and Mrs. John Buck. And then there was Allie, we called him, Alfred, his name was, and he never married. And then there was George. George was the oldest of them all. And Joseph and Madeline.
So they had a really big family.
Oh, they had 6 children.
Now, what did Mr. Seidenberg do?
He had started as a very poor man. They were French, I think they were French Jews. They were Jewish, and we didn't have many Jews in Hastings then. And when I was a kid, I thought you had to be rich to be Jewish. I learned to my sorrow afterward. Plenty of poor Jews, too. And he led the shirtwaist factory.
He worked in a shirtwaist?
No, he had it.
He owned it. Right.
When he started, they came here from France, and they lived in New York City. And they started, and she had one sewing machine in the house. And I don't know whether he cut them or not, but she sewed the shirts. and the thing. Then they got a couple of sewing machines, and they started out with a small place. Then they had a big factory. They were, and they had one in France too. They were, I forget what her name was. I could see the Indian head was the with their trademark, a round thing like this Indian
I
head.
see. Right.
And, but then his sons grew up to be bankers. They didn't go into it. One went to Holly was a man. He had started as a poor man too. And you know where Tappan Hill restaurant is? Well, he bought that.
I see. And he married one of the Seidenberg girls.
Yes, he married
Right.
the
How did the Seidenbergs happen to come to Hastings? Do you know?
I don't know.
Did they build that house? You probably don't.
No, I don't. I think that was a Minter house.
Ah.
I think. I'm not sure.
Right.
But I don't think they had been there for a long time when we went there.
I see. Did they do a lot of entertaining?
They didn't have enough entertaining. They
They didn't have to have anybody in to have a party,
in the
right?
summertime, they had all the families there. The George Seidenbergs and their children.
Compound, I guess. Like a compound.
Yeah.
Yes,
way.
actually it was.
From what you told me.
Yeah.
It was a big house.
Right.
And they had, one thing I always think about, what nice people they were. They had, I can't think of her name except Maggie, was an old woman that worked for them. And she was the first one person that worked for them. And Mrs. Seidenberg got her to help out with her kids while she did the sewing on the machine. That had happened not long before.
I see.
And you know, as long as that woman lived, they took care of her.
Yeah.
They had an apartment. They used to go visit her and go there for dinner once a week, one or two of them.
Right. So they had a loyalty to the people around them,
Oh,
the
yes.
Seidenbergs did.
And when my mother died, they wanted to take me to live
Did they
with
want
them.
to adopt you?
Well, they wanted to take me to live with them. They think they'd not.
Yeah.
Right. Do you know what happened to that family? I mean, obviously they saw.
Mrs. died.
It's not too much to ask that. I take the express bus, walk the express bus down to the World Trade Center. And you go down, I never knew they wouldn't either. Go down the Broadway. And around 10th, 11th, and then on, around that area, all these antiques are there. Fabulous things. And I see a David Seidenberg.
Oh.
Sure, and I really want to call up one day and say, oh, I was looking at
It must be a great.
but it still has to start there from someplace.
Yes, right.
Because it wouldn't be just a great grandson.
No. Well,
in that
look,
area to be established like it is.
no, he's one of them.
I want to call up one day just for the heck of it.
Yeah, right.
They went to were bankers, and one worked in the South. I don't want to make more than one, but Mr. Holly,
How do you spell that?
H-A-L-L-E.
I see.
We call it
L-L-E.
Holla,
Yeah.
but it was H-A-L-L-E.
I
Oh,
see.
And they had one son, and
was there ever a David?
not that I know of, but there could be.
Oh, mother, for these years.
So these years,
Yeah,
it could be.
definitely.
He could be a great grandson or
Great.
Yeah,
Right.
yeah, that's true.
Well, did the
But this
Seidenbergs...
Hallie had this chimpanzee, he owned it, and he made a killing in the stock market one day.
I see.
That night he went home and died.
Wow. He had a heart attack.
He must have, yeah.
Yeah. Did the Seidenbergs ever get together with any of their neighbors?
Not that I know of.
I was trying to think.
Dr. Shaw
He was there.
trotting around the world. Not
And Minturn was there, but that's not the same.
that was an
Well, I think my
interesting.
mother said
But
Seidenberg is in the intern state.
It had been.
yeah, but there must have been two houses there because there's a little gray fieldstone house.
That was Dr. Shaw lived in that. Well, he got this house, the big yellow brick house, ready to. That was built for a garage, not a garage, a carriage house.
I see. Oh.
And I think the owner, I can remember, and I don't see why it should be. Why I can be very wrong. That was owned by a family named Foster. And Dr. Shaw came from Irvington down here,
I see.
and he lived in a stone house.
Mm-hmm.
And then when he got finished this off of the house, they rented the stone house, and the people I remember there were Goan, Goan.
I see. We have pictures of Cyrus Fields there.
In that house?
Not living there, I don't think, but maybe
Well,
visiting
Cyrus
Shaw.
Fields was
Yeah,
Cyrus Fields was up in Southbury in my time.
right. He must have been visiting Dr. Shaw at his place, and the two of them are standing outside, and you can see those two houses. Yeah.
And then for a while, his coachman or housekeeper, well, what would he be, gardener or whatever, yeah, they didn't have much garden. They lived in a stone house.
Mm-hmm.
And she used to make good bread. Mrs. Shaw made good homemade bread.
Uh-huh.
And I used to hop the fence. And the baking day, I hop the fence, and she gives a crust of bread and a glass of milk. She was a very homey person.
Mm-hmm.
And they went to Japan. That was when we first had, I imagine we first had relationships with Japan at that time.
Uh-huh.
And so she brought me home a tea set.
Oh, how nice.
About this big. Little toy tea set. She's always buying me things.
Yeah.
And I kept it and loved it. My stepmother thought it was silly for me to have that, so she gave it away.
Oh,
It's
that's
big, isn't it?
For you,
Yeah.
she would, yeah.
If it's yours, she might
Knowing
let you
grandmother,
keep-
I know my tea set was sent to me
Uh-huh.
from Jersey,
Yeah,
and pearls and coral beads.
Oh,
yeah.
That
You
sounds
got,
great.
but I got nothing. But Mrs. Shaw was a very homely person.
mm-hmm.
I can see her now.
Yeah.
She's the first Mrs. Shaw. The second one had been his secretary.
Did you realize he was such a famous person when you were?
Then I did, yeah.
Yeah.
Yes, because I remember when the men came home from the Spanish-American War, he and Teddy Roosevelt were very close friends.
I see.
And Teddy Roosevelt and his troop of men came up Broadway on horseback. It sounds unbelievable. And
It wasn't
somebody
paved.
lifted me up, and Teddy Roosevelt kissed me.
Oh my! Hey,
And
listen.
to
I
talk
was going
to
to tell Doris in New York today, because her mother was a fan of Teddy Roosevelt.
Oh,
So now you see, your mother was kissed by.
Yeah.
When we have our next,
I was only a little kid.
Believe me.
when we have our next famous people exhibit, we are going to include satellite people that just came for a visit, like Napoleon III visited here, with people like that. And we must put in it that Mae Capron was kissed by Teddy
Right.
Roosevelt. You'll be one of our famous people.
So, but I think the two Shaw boys were born in that house there,
Mhm.
Dr. Shaw. But he was a very famous man, Shaw.
Yeah. He must have had a lot of famous
He's got
guests.
a lot of
I think.
things.
Oh yeah, just
Actually,
as a suburb of
you
the,
know,
yeah.
grapefruit and
Right.
whatever.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Of course, now we're going into the new regime. with
Right.
The artists,
Right.
sculptors, and actors.
Oh, we had artists.
Oh,
We
imagine.
did have. Did you know we had Mr. Briesmeister as one of our?
He was
oh,
with
go.
the National Geological and
Yeah.
map making.
Yeah, we had him. He was one of our famous people, and
Definitely.
his sons and Mrs. Briesmeister gave us some of the maps of the North Pole, I think it was, and pictures of
Her
him.
son Arthur, who I think he must have been on the first, I don't know, one of these hush-hush things about the atom bomb or whatever. Arthur,
Oh,
the
yeah.
Oh,
old
yeah,
stuff.
yeah.
He's still in New Mexico.
Oh, he's at Los Alamos, probably. Right.
And he's had a couple bad heart attacks.
Oh, has he? Oh.
Mhm. Well, Shaw was one of our famous people. Mr. Brown, you know, from Maple Avenue, was one of our famous people. He was editor
was
of
he?
he was editor of the New York
I think
Gazette,
that too, yeah.
of Valentine's Manual, it was called. And I'm trying to think of who else. Oh, of course, Billy Burke. And, there was a nice long list. It was fun. Yeah. Yeah, that he would sort of be one of the, we sort of cut it off at a certain age,
Yeah,
and then the
right.
next one will be the closer, the
Yeah. 'Cause you get
more
a couple
recent.
more that were young.
Right.
The one's
Yeah.
on Janet Brown, so one's on Today's World, or another
Oh, there are a lot of
or
television
whatever.
people. Yeah.
You don't look that.
Yeah.
So-and-so was on there, handsome. I don't remember him, Janet.
Well, can you tell me anything about clothes when you were young? What did your mother wear? What kind of clothes did your mother wear?
Clothes.
Yeah.
Oh, you
Homemade.
have a picture in the attic that's beautiful of your mother,
I wonder
your
how
real
old.
mother.
How old is that picture?
That must have been the 1890s or before that.
Right.
You know, half the things.
Yeah.
Oh, beautiful.
I hope that you won't, you know, if you give it away to anybody, give it to the
I
historical
wanted to
society.
give it away.
No, but yeah,
No, anyone
yeah.
who was left.
The right. We're always hoping that you know we will get things in our archives that we don't have other things of because it's so hard to.
You know,
do
actually,
these
they
things.
should give you a room somewhere, but not to just color in that little closet.
Yeah. We
Would you
we
like
do
to
have a
lasagna
problem.
with it?
No, listen, I'm going to shut this
I
off.
don't know what it looks like. It's gonna be
Because I'm
like.
sure you must all be starved. It's just got so
Yeah.
interesting.
Well,
We don't usually eat before now.
Yeah.
Anyway.
The other lady here is Mrs. Capron's daughter, Jean Hornbostel, and she's got dinner already. So I'm going to conclude this then.
Oh,
Yeah. Thank you very much, Mae. Yeah.
You're
And we'll
welcome.
be back to talk more with you. Also, we'll get you and Martha together. We'll hide the recorder someplace.
That's the thing to do.
Yeah. On again, because Mae can tell us something about moving the Episcopal Church. What can you tell us? You were there. You
Oh, not
watched
very-
it.
Oh, yes, I watched it go up Main Street on a wagon, like
Right.
a dray, I guess they call it.
When was that? Did you say?
We have
I
the
remember
date.
something being
Yeah.
going up, and I don't know what it was.
Well, it was, I don't, well, that's what it was. It was a
But I-
building moved up Main Street.
I know, but what?
Mm.
I don't remember what year it was, but it isn't that terribly.
Was I born?
I guess so. I'm not
I've
sure.
often
Probably was with you.
I've often wondered how they got that church. I guess instead of going up the slope to where it is, they probably went up around on
Probably
the
went
Broadway
around
and came down.
around the aqueduct. I don't know
Yeah.
how they got that in there, but I remember it blocking traffic
Mhm.
on the Main Street.
Mhm.
So,
That church is interesting. It's
very old.
what they call stick architecture. You know, it's got the wood.
Oh,
so I think it was a
and they
Swiss-
call that sticks?
Yeah, I think that's what they call it, stick architecture.
Is that
It
the
was
one-
Swiss.
Across from the
It's
National
on
City,
church.
City Bank?
Mhm. The little white.
The
No.
one across from the city bank is a Lutheran church. The old Lutheran church.
This is
Oh, you
tucked
mean-
behind there.
Other.
Yeah, a little white
Grace
church.
Church.
Oh,
Tucked
in
behind
back
there.
there.
Yeah.
Oh, I'm thinking of the one on Broadway, you know.
It is.
Right
It's
corner.
on Broadway,
It's all stone.
next to the
Well,
aqueduct.
that's just the parish house. The church itself is a little white church. Take a look in there. It's really
The parish
charming.
house was built
Yeah.
So I
there.
don't know that
Yeah.
one.
Actually, from what I have heard, they built the foundation for the parish house to build a new church on that foundation,
Oh,
and they didn't have the money, so they moved the
that
other
I didn't
church
know.
up. That's what I've
nice
heard. I
and
don't know
interesting.
how.
Well, it sounds
Yeah,
reasonable.
yeah,
No.
it does.
And,
Because the Episcopals usually
but I
do
don't
have
know
big.
how they got
churches.
the church out of that, was in the parking lot, you
Yeah,
know.
they used to move a lot of houses, I guess, in the old days,
Yeah,
and they
yeah.
still do.
Slowly, you
Yeah.
know. The horses dragged the or
Did they do it
maybe
with
at that
horses?
time they had an automobile with us.
Yeah.
A
We
truck.
have pictures of them moving the church. You have to